12 o'clock as well. So firstly, if I could ask everyone to just go on mute. I can do it myself if I see anyone sort of making a racket, but if you could do it, it just does make my life a little bit easier. But obviously, welcome to the QAstion Time panel discussion today, which is all about quality coaching. My name's Christy, so I'm a quality and test consultant for Expertise Recruitment, and basically I place great testers with my great clients across Manchester, the Northwest, and out into Yorkshire too. I did notice today, actually, only this morning, that it is the 1-year anniversary of this event. The first one took place a year ago today at TalkTalk's office, so I won't get everyone to sing happy birthday, but you can all do so in your own time afterwards. That'd be great. No, I'm only joking. But today's session is all about quality coaching. So all about the increasing significance of this within the testing world. As I said in the event description, lots of the conversations I've had with my clients over the last months and years has been about how they're moving away from a testing culture to a quality culture, and how instead of maybe employing traditional testers, they will instead be looking to employ quality advocates or quality coaches for their teams. So I've been personally very keen to learn more about the role and the implications as well on the wider testing industry, which is why I've got these 3 wonderful speakers today to help us do that. So as I say, if everyone could just go on mute, if you would like to ask any questions throughout the chat using the chat function on Zoom, that would be great. I will then pose the questions to the speakers. If it is a really difficult concept to get across, I know they say communication is only 50% written or something, then obviously you can unmute yourself and ask the question yourself. So yeah, if we could start by doing a bit of a speaker's intro. So Leigh, I don't know if you want to kick us off. Tell us a bit about who you are and what you do.
Yes, I'm Leigh Rathbone. I currently work at a company called TLA. I've been testing for about 23 years now, across 11 different companies, which have all been in different sectors, which has been really interesting because you get to learn the concept. Yeah, thanks. So yeah, you learn to get the context of each company and industry that they're in. Hi Fifi, if you could go on mute, please. Thank you. So yeah, I love testing. It's been a passion. I've dabbled my toe with quality coaching before, but my role now is as a quality coach. So is it to do all the testing? No, not at all. Am I a quality coach where I enable others? Yes. So that's me in a nutshell.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. Tahira, I don't know if you'd like to go next.
Sure. So hi everybody, I'm Tahira Atcher. I currently work as the head of quality advocacy at a company called CDL. We're based in Stockport. For me, I've been in testing, I try not to count the number of years because it makes me feel old. But I started obviously as probably all of us did with this concept of testing and getting involved right at the end of things and checking everything's all right. And then I definitely saw there was a shift going on towards this concept of quality instead. And to me, there's a lot to be said about actually being able to have a lot more sense of ownership and responsibility for baking that quality in from the start and seeing that fruits of your labour actually come through and having a much better sense of accomplishment from that kind of collaborative working, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more later. But yeah, I'm very, very passionate in this space. I could talk all day about it, but obviously we only have an hour.
All right, great. And Stuart, would you like to go last?
Yeah, so I'm Stuart Day, so I'm head of quality at a company called Dunelm Soft Furnishings. I also do count the years and the hair loss as well along with it. And I've also been in exactly, Leigh, right? I've been in testing and quality for 23 years also. I know me and Leigh definitely don't look it, right? So I've just put that one out there for you all. But from my perspective, you know, over the last, probably since I stepped more into the agile world, and obviously with that, you know, comes different ways of working or different concepts around DevOps and shift left, shift right, all those different things. The shift around, you know, talking about quality versus talking about testing has become very key. And how roles have gradually evolved. I am very much, like Leigh mentioned, you know, a quality coach, and talk to the organization more around how we can achieve quality from the outset. rather than trying to test quality in later in the process, like, you know, a lot of traditional ways of working used to do. So yeah, I'm all for the quality conversation, and yeah, that's why I'm here, hopefully.
Okay, great. So I think a good starting point would actually be, I don't know if you'd like to start, Stuart, just give from your perspective, you know, what a quality coach is and does.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of just to expand on what I was talking about there. So for me, it's very much firstly understanding what quality means to the organization you're in, and having those conversations and narrative around that. So, you know, you get 10 people in a room, ask them what quality means, you'll get 10 different answers. And that's really important, because you need to understand what it means to the company or the people that you're working with, or the people that the company you're working for. And as a quality coach, and like all coaching, it's you know, understanding your teams, your audience, the people that you're engaging with is critical. So, you know, firstly defining that, what does quality mean within the organization, and then obviously being able to coach principles and values around that, and how to enable your teams and the people within the teams to achieve those outcomes. And you know, quality for me is very much, you know, focusing on our end-to-end, how it all comes together, and through the conversations we have, through the testing we do, yes, but through the technology we choose, all these different elements. So that's how it is for me.
Yeah, great, thank you. I don't know if either of you two have anything that you would add to that, anything different. I mean, I know it was very eloquently put by Stu.
I think I have a very similar take to Stu, but I think I'd word it slightly differently. So, and this is what Stuart said, you know, everyone has a different perception of what quality is. It's, you know, it's very subjective. But for me, when I think about a quality coach, when I think about quality, I found Arthur C. Clarke's quote, and I put the Rathbone twist on it. And it was this: any significantly advanced technology which feels high quality is indistinguishable from magic. Now, if you think about that, what's the role of the quality coach? And if that is what quality is, it's delivering magic. Well, it's making the team realize how great they are and what their potential is in order to deliver that magic. And I think I sort of come up and think very fluffy, and I think very abstract at times. So that would be my take on it, to supplement what Stuart has said.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, I'll just tag in then as well. And my description, when I was asked what quality means to me, went very much down the sort of like cake route, and that may or may not be because I have a sweet tooth. But to me, there's lots of different elements that basically come together to give you this concept, to this almost abstract concept of quality. And to me, I use the analogy of baking a cake, because you take the ingredients, you've got to maybe a specific set of equipment that you're using, or maybe you choose the kind of appropriate equipment which would be more suitable for your role, which is actually a better way. And then you've got that kind of professional chef who can kind of give that final finishing touch that brings it all together. But also kind of weaved into that is there's a recipe as well that you can follow, or you can embellish on and build upon. So to me, the kind of the analogies that come under there are sort of like the people, processes, tools, and best practices. All of those things come together. And as a quality coach, I think you need to have that mixture of kind of, as Leigh was saying, having the holistic view that kind of looks at things in a more abstract sense, and all bringing all those different concepts together, breaking that down into sort of like, how does that translate into day-to-day activity, but also how do you imbue, how do you inspire other people that you're working with to take that quality journey with you? Because I fully believe that, you know, we have a responsibility for quality, but as a quality coach, your role there is to help to bring that to life for the team and the people that you're working with, and for the customers that you're building all this wonderful stuff for.
Yeah, and I think all three of you have touched on this as well, that it's almost like quality is, you know, it's not just an activity, it's a cultural belief, isn't it? So to hear it, I know obviously I think I said this to you as well previously, that your LinkedIn job title is head of quality advocacy. I don't know if that's an official title, but it's obviously, you know, it's almost trying to make a statement that it's not quality assurance, it's quality advocacy. So, you know, I suppose that comes down to driving that cultural change. I wondered if there's anything else that you do to sort of help drive that mindset change within your organization, and yeah, what you do to do that.
Absolutely. So when I first joined the organisation, it was more sort of like focused around testing as an activity, and I obviously wanted to bring that quality culture, as you say, to everything that we do. So part of that was, you know, having that kind of conversation of, well, what's the difference between testing and quality? What are the advantages and disadvantages of both approaches? Because there's definitely advantages to testing. There are things that testing can bring out, but to me, testing is one specific activity that you can do that brings quality to everything. So after kind of establishing what it is that we wanted to change to, where we wanted to get to, it was breaking that down into almost like a transformational journey, which, as you quite rightly pointed out, part of that is how do you get that mindset in place, and how do you shift that culture with you? So we've done a few different things, including, you know, bringing quality into the teams and having team level focus on quality and identifying things that the teams can work on together. We've put in place and developed a specific program of coaching and training to help not just people with the specific quality advocacy role, but also within the teams understand how their individual and contributing collaborative activities can build that quality into what they're doing, so that when they pick up a new piece of work, or even when they're picking up something that, you know, they might have not touched for a while, that quality conversation can flow from the beginning right through to the end and beyond. So we're thinking in much bigger terms. So there's definitely a few different steps we're taking along the way to get to that point.
Okay, cool. I don't know if either of, I mean, both of you are also heads of quality as opposed to head of test. Is there anything you'd add to that, to sort of driving that mindset change within your organizations?
So is that aimed at any of us, Christopher?
Yes, either of you.
Yeah, so I think first of all, I better set the context for my answer. So I'm working in a company that has 20 devs and me. There's no BAs, there's no testers, it's just 20 devs and me. So the context there that I'd like to explain first of all is when I joined and I realized I was joining a company that only had 20 devs with no test presence, I was a little bit apprehensive, if I'm going to be honest, and I'm aware we have some devs on the call here. But I was really pleasantly surprised when I joined. Now, what they were missing, which is what I've tried to add, is they were thinking about quality for their one single piece of work and what quality looks like for them to deliver the task, the story that they were working on. They weren't thinking about what it looks like when it all comes together. So what I've been doing since I've joined TLA is trying to get them to come up a level and think about quality from the customer's perspective, from each other's perspective. So they've all got dependencies on each other. They've got interactions with each other's code. What does quality look like there? So I've realized that I've had to retune my brain from being a test leader at a strategic level, coming into a company where it's just me and 20 devs. I've had to think about how I become a question asker again, and how I tune my brain into becoming a question asker, how I build empathy to someone who's never had any kind of testing presence or someone asking questions around quality. So I've tried to really get close to the devs and look at it from their point of view. I've run a lot of sessions on what quality looks like when handing over to each other, what quality looks like from the customer. And I'm just trying to get them to tune their brain into looking at this end-to-end journey. So I've run a lot of joint test sessions. Now, that might sound, I know Tahira said it's not all about test, it's about everything, but bringing them together as a collective into an hour-and-a-half test session where we looked at it with the customer's lenses on and said, what does quality look like? Wow, you know what? The feedback in the retros was that's the session they look forward to most. Out of all the sessions that they have throughout the whole week, they look forward to the joint test sessions, and I've just come out of it to join this meetup. So I think one of the biggest takeaways was getting them together to talk about what does quality mean for them? What's the impact?
Yeah, awesome. I don't know if you'd add anything to that yourself, Stu.
I kind of have the opposite challenge to Leigh in terms of we've got a lot of teams, and the scale at which we're trying to work and collaborate is quite challenge. Well, it's challenging, and we're continuously we're growing our time to market. We constantly want to go quicker, those kind of things, and kind of when I this is my second time round at Dunham, and when I rejoined, we were working through our digital re-platform, and I rejoined in a principal role, and it was all about how do we do end-to-end testing, and it's like, and we've left it very much till the last minute, and we need to do this and we need to do that, and whilst that was quite obviously a big challenge for the teams, and they kind of put themselves into that space, it actually enabled us to start giving examples of how to think differently about how we could approach this in the future. And very similar to what Tahira was saying, in terms of we're spending a lot of time around coaching people, educating people to think differently about how we can achieve the same end result, i.e. deliver quickly to our customer, but with the value of what we're trying to deliver in mind, and how that then all fits together with the teams, how we structure our teams, the types of skills, who can, who does, who will test. It's not a specific role anymore. It's everybody can contribute. How we can look at an idea and start focusing on an idea really early up front, and have our quality advocates in those conversations to drill out, is this the right thing for our customer? Because we could spend weeks, months delivering something only for it to be the wrong thing. It might tick all the boxes in terms of what we asked for, but if our customers don't like it or don't use it, it's not the quality that we need. So we've done very similar things in terms of, we set up what we've called a quality academy, which is essentially a learning platform, a learning forum for our quality advocates within our chapter. We've got about 40 of them now. But also it's there to provide a level of education, a level of learning for the wider organization, and we use it, and we've defined common principles, common behavioral values, and underlying foundational pieces around team structures and so on, to help shape that kind of shift in mindset, shift in culture, and in how we approach things. So it's we're still on that journey. Some of our teams are way more mature and acceptant of the change. Others are still a little bit more resistant and less mature, but that's fine. We've got examples of where it works really well. We've got examples of where we still need to improve. But it's the next step for us is really kind of bringing it to light for the teams in terms of like health checks around the maturity of your quality practices, mindset, so on, so they themselves can own that and then continuously improve and figure it out as they go. So like, just take a step back, let them kind of figure it out, is where we are.
Can I interject? It's really interesting. Sorry to hear. You go first. Go on.
No, age before beauty.
Right. So listening to Tahira and Stuart there, it's really interesting because they're obviously in different size companies. Again, for a bit of context for the room here, I work for a scale-up. So another part of my role is to listen to the commercial aspects. So I attend the daily commercial meeting where we're talking about how we've performed, where the money is coming from, where the next pound's coming from, and putting that context around what quality looks like in order to get out to make money. Right, because we are living on a day by day during lockdown and COVID, we are in survival mode, big style. And I'm sure the other companies are, but when you're a scale up and there's only 60 people in our company, every day we're pivoting, and anything that we're building for 4 months launch, we're having to readjust and go, actually, we need it out in 2 in order to survive when we come out of lockdown. So what does quality then look like if we're cutting the timelines from 4 months to 2 months? So I just wanted to set the context that, the 3 companies we're talking about here sound very, very different.
Yeah. And I know, sorry, go on, Tahira.
I was just going to say, I'm actually glad that Leigh went first there, because it brings together actually 2 different angles that I wanted to cover, which are like Stu and his organisation, we also have a programme of training that we call an academy, and we actually started out by having deliberately choosing to have mixed level different role groups in those sessions, so that we could actually have not even people from the same teams, but from across the different places in different teams in the organisation, to bring people together to have those conversations about what quality means. And we found that those conversations themselves were really valuable in those sessions, because it helped people to build a better understanding of how every role contributes, what the different aspects are, and what quality means along every sort of step of the way. And then, sort of like tying in with what Leigh was saying, one thing I wanted to mention is that probably one of the hardest behavioural traits to unlearn almost is this focus on being a perfectionist. And that everything has to be perfect before it can go out, and sort of like changing that conversation to, well, what's actually going to be valuable for our customer, for our client, what will actually give them the satisfaction and feel like they've really got something that is going to give them that sort of competitive edge, or that latest bleeding edge idea, or something new to the marketplace, or something like that. And all of those things need to come together when we're sort of talking about these concepts, especially with, time to market and needing to sort of bring things to life very quickly, are obviously more and more important as we become a very technology heavy society.
I know Danny's asked a question for Leigh, and I know you touched on this as well, actually, Stuart, just about sort of resistance from people to a change in approach, basically. So Danny's asked, have you ever faced any issues with test independence, and how have you dealt with that issue, which I presume is to do with resistance from developers, I suppose.
I guess the point is, do the developers look for someone independent away from the team to then act as some kind of gate or quality check as to what the team's doing? That's how I read that question. If Danielle could confirm that that's how I've interpreted it. But if that is, while we wait for Daniel to confirm.
Yeah, sorry, Leigh, yeah, that is right. I'm just, my concern, because I've worked with both these situations in the past, and my concern is that developers have that mindset of, sound really cliched here, so apologies to anyone developed on the phone, but it's my baby, I've built it, it's fine, it's a feature, all those kind of stereotypical things, and have not tested things as well as they should. So that kind of independence of a test team to look at it from a different view is really important. So I'm just keen to get your view on that. We're working with that dev team.
So the answer, I think, is multi-layered. Thanks for clarifying, Daniel. So where I am at the moment, well, let me roll back. In QA, that column, okay, that in a team itself is almost saying, well, that's the I've seen some teams that go, that's for the tester to do. What you want is that column is just simply another step in order to get to the end, and it doesn't matter who picks it up. It's the person who's best placed with the skill sets in order to continue that ticket and deliver that value. But to scale it back to where I am right now and answer Daniel's question directly, I was absolutely gobsmacked, and this is a trend I'm seeing in the industry. I was gobsmacked by the developers' attitude to testing, to quality. And did they see me as independent? No, they see me as part of the team. I'm a quality coach. I'm part of the team. I am in their team. I have tasks that I can do differently to them. I have tasks I can help them with and coach them with, but they do not see me as an independent test person. They see me as part of the team delivering value. And I think this is really important for a quality coach. You don't want to be seen as an independent person. You want to be seen as that person who's living and breathing that code from inception right through to delivery. I'm very lucky. And when I said this is a trend in the industry, I'm really interested to hear what Stuart and Tahira say on this. I sense this anyway. It's a trend that's happening. We've got Andrew Beacock on the call here. Now, Andrew, when it comes to security engineering, and I'm not talking about security testing, security engineering, Andrew as a dev owns it end to end, and he'll call in and ask other people to come and help and get their experience, opinion, and he'll ask coaches to come and help him. But as a dev, he owns it from end to end. That's happening all around the world, and it's growing really quickly. And this is another reason why I think the test manager role is almost dying out, and it's been replaced with the test coach, because devs are taking more ownership. The tools, the platforms, the infrastructures, the pipelines, they're all there to help devs deliver better quality code. And our job as quality coaches is to bring out that awesomeness in them, to take all the way through to the end. I'm interested what Stuart and Tahira have to say.
Yeah. You okay for me to go, Tara?
Yeah, no, you're fine.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Yeah. I think, yeah, Leigh, I think it's interesting because we've definitely seen that with, a lot of our in-house engineering teams. But we still struggle with, say, third parties that we work with, which is still very much there to say, we're going to develop this and hand it over. But in terms of, trying to remove that dev test type divide, we talk and do a lot of pairing activities. And that's, the classic three amigos type of things, but also when encouraging our devs, our engineers and our QAs to collaborate together whilst we're coding or whilst we're testing, to help share and build empathy for each other, to understand the challenges that each may face, and therefore, understand where that quality can be built into whilst you're going, rather than, like you say, handing it over and going, oh, I've done my bit, can you just tell me whether it's right or wrong? Now, as I mentioned earlier, the right or wrong question is, always very much been about, do these tests pass? It's not that, as often about the actual experience of, is this the right thing? And are we doing this for our customer, coming back to the value add to the customer? So, our in-house engineering teams and to be fair, also teams that we do partner with, within the digital world, we've ensured that, they've got that same type of mindset. And anybody that we bring into the organization, it's very much about mindset. Skill sets are quite easy to come by because there's so many talented people out there, but the mindset side of things is always the challenge. But when we come to third parties, obviously they do things their way, and it's then trying to just gradually kind of convince them, actually, yeah, why don't you allow us to come into these conversations, right? So you end up being a quality coach for those third parties as well, and just chipping away at that mindset and just ways of working. It won't necessarily get to the same point, but you can gradually improve things. So that's kind of where we are with the experience that we're seeing, definitely.
I'd echo that almost in its entirety, because we're seeing a very similar trend where I think it's the more that you can get people to understand things from a different person's point of view, whether that's a QA and a dev or a BA, or whether it's a customer and a client relationship manager or whatever, it's all about being able to understand each other. And so many of these challenges or perceived problems end up coming back down to the fact of communication, and how well we're communicating with each other and how well we can understand each other, building that kind of that empathy, which also then leads to trust and understanding. That's, to me, really, really key. And one of the sort of the main factors in that is having, if you pardon the pun, it's quality conversations. It's not just conversations about quality, but it's the quality, inherent quality in those conversations as well, that helps to sort of move that needle forward. And we've certainly seen, I've seen it all from that regard, that, the stalwart dev who's like, well, that's not my job, I'm not a tester, to the person who wants to be completely involved and see this baby through not just its gestational period, but taking its first steps, and actually walking and going and graduating from college, if you take the analogy as far as you like. We're also then having those conversations as teams, as sort of like pair levels, as sort of like mobbing sessions, and then taking those kinds of conversations that step further with our clients as well, and saying, well, how can we help you to get what you want? And then using that concept to introduce some of the concepts that we talk about within the teams, of essentially bringing collaboration into the mix, and how this can build benefit and value, and help us to understand you better, help you to understand us better, so that eventually there's no us and you, there's us together.
Yeah, I'll just, if I can, sorry, Christy, I'd just like to build on what Tahira and Stuart have both said. We always think about shift left, don't we? Oh, yeah, we've got to shift left. Well, actually, I think one of the roles, and Tahira really pointed out there, shift right, as in not going into DevOps where you're putting monitoring, alerting, logging in place, but shift right, get the customer involved. So I think a key part of the quality coach is actually thinking about feedback loops. And what do feedback loops look like? So we've already mentioned pairing at unit level, pairing, mobbing, three amigos, they're all feedback loops. and also bringing the customers in. I think one of the key things with Quality Coach is how fast can those feedback loops, and I think, again, someone's put something, better quality code faster, is in the chat somewhere. And that is all about your feedback loops. So if you've read the book Lean Startup, that focuses purely on feedback loops and how quick and how powerful they are, because they allow you to know whether to continue or whether to pivot. So I just wanted to say that the shift left is spot on. To hear her mention the word customer, that's spot on as well.
Yeah. Questions are coming through thick and fast at this point. So we'll go up to Nathan, who asked it a good 10 minutes ago, but he was wondering how you guys document your quality principles and expectations, and then how you sort of measure against them.
Shall I go first this time?
Yeah.
Just to give everyone else a chance to then feed in afterwards. So I'm one of those that does not like heavy documentation whatsoever. I think it's really heavy, cumbersome, and it's dead the moment that you finish writing it. So we keep ours very lightweight and very few in number. So I have, I think it's 3 overall very high level strategy documents, and they're written almost more like stories in themselves, not user stories, but like narratives. So why are these things important to us? What are some of the key things that we believe in that need to make those things happen? And what are sort of like some almost final thoughts looking forward of how that makes a difference? So we have one overall for quality advocacy as a thing, one specifically for how you approach automated testing, and one for sort of performance testing. And these are things that we don't keep internally either. These are things that we also share with our clients, because it's important that they also understand where we're coming from when we talk about certain things, so we can get to that point of ubiquitous language, everyone's speaking the same thing and meaning the same thing behind that. And then in terms of like how we actually measuring things, again, I am one of those that's not keen on measuring 20 different things, which might, essentially give you lots of different white noise. So we focus on 5 or 6 key things that we use to just, I wouldn't even use the word measure, it's more to trend whether we're going in the right direction. So we obviously look at things like cycle time and things like that are related to how quickly we're getting value out there, but we also look at we've devised something that we call a left shifter meter, so 10 key questions that our teams can answer collaboratively to identify, well, in these kinds of activities, how well are we actually doing, how often are we doing these and repeating these kinds of behaviors. So we use a range of metrics, and then chuck in like the traditional kind of like how many escaped defects do we have, because that tells us if there's anything in our processes that are actually leaking and causing us difficulties further along, and then work those backwards to be able to identify improvements, because it's not just your metrics that are key and finding the right things to measure. It's making sure that you drill them back down to a root cause and understand what you can actually do to improve them, so that those trends improve over time.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks to hear. It's Nathan, by the way. Thank you for that. Very interesting. Couple of key points on there. People don't like heavy documentation. You're absolutely right. And talking about creating a document and it's dead as soon as you've written it, in my eyes, it should be a living document all the time. And it's interesting that you put your quality into different strategies. So you have 3 strategies and you write your quality expectations in those strategies. Thank you very much for that. Interesting.
Thank you.
Cool. So I know we touched on this one again at the start, but Steve has asked, who mentioned actually he's worked with all of you before. So he asked who, to the panel, when introducing a quality first approach to the organisation, where would you start? For the context, the organisation is test only and there are only a handful of testers.
So I'm happy to kick off. So I think I kind of mentioned it earlier. And I think Tahira, you touched on this as well, in terms of opening up some conversations around what quality actually means to different people, and starting to look at how, whilst testing is a part of helping to identify the level of quality that something may be, look at other areas, other parts of your process, the conversation side, the collaboration side, and identify those things where you can actually start saying, well, if we have the right conversations here, we can start building a level of quality earlier, and so on and so on. Understanding your customer is absolutely pivotal to be able to understand what level of quality you need to release. As I think, again, somebody mentioned it earlier about, gold polishing up something to make sure, it's the best thing it possibly can be, but does it really need to be the best it possibly can be? Actually getting it out there and getting some feedback, like Leigh mentioned, quicker is going to add way more value a lot of the time than, making sure it's what we think is right. So I think I would start by, having some initial conversations around what does quality mean? Where does testing fit into that? Rather than, trying to go in and say, we need to stop talking about testing, start talking about quality, because, they do kind of go hand in hand, but there's so much more to it. And you can start building out conversations, getting people to understand a little bit more around the difference, but also how they kind of intertwine a little bit. That would be where I would start anyway.
Yeah, I've got a different approach because my context is different to Stuart's and to Hera's. So in a scale up where pounds matter, what I did was I took a story based around money. So when the CEO asked me why we were getting issues and why we were getting priority one issues, I laid it very simple. So he's worried about money. Every time we have a P1 issue, we're losing money. So I had something to go after, something that was really important to him, which is money. So then I started relaying a story of how the quality we had done previously had suited us for there and then, which was get the stuff out. But because we hadn't built in some quality attributes like logging, monitoring, observability, testability, it meant we'd just gone to something live and moved on to the next bit to get more money in. It was now hitting us and it was now biting us on the ass. And when I put it into that context for him, and the reason we now have devs being sucked into P1 issues rather than developing new code is because we didn't think about quality previously or the right level of quality, then this is now impacting revenue now. And once I relayed that story and put the context behind it for him, he was on board. So now the CEO is on board with what quality should look like, and the fact that sometimes we need to go a little bit slower in order to make us go quicker in the long term. So I've got that buy-in now. So he's absolutely brilliant. He's 100% behind it. That's bleeding into the company because now he's bringing me into all the conversations around quality, and whenever we do a new project, I'm at the beginning. So I went with that approach.
So I just want to come back a little bit, one step back further and sort of take a look at the question Steve was asking. He mentioned that the context is the org is test only and there are only a handful of testers. So that's quite an interesting challenge, because I imagine this applies to quite a lot of, consultancies out there, just test consultancies, like where obviously people not only have built a career around testing, but the entire ethos of the organization is therefore about testing and selling testing services. And I think that's actually a bit more of a challenge, because you're not just talking about moving the needle in one direction, you're talking about moving the needle for the entire company at the same time almost. And probably where I would start, because I've not had that specific challenge before, is it's about building that, I take it back to that kind of building that empathy and that context and that understanding. So, okay, your activities as a test consultancy or as a test only organization, what are the impacts of the work that you do, not just on yourselves and like the work that you're doing directly, but what are the impacts where, once that work's left your hands, and actually, well, what's the impact on you from the stuff that's coming in? And if you broaden that concept of quality further, so that it bleeds between those lines, well, here's where the value is, here's what you can actually get, these are the advantages that you can gain from that, which are obviously, being able to get a much better level of satisfaction from the customers or the clients that you're dealing with, or, making your own lives easier because you're involving yourselves more with the activities that take place before the actual, testing part. So I'd probably start with those kinds of conversations and then use that to introduce some of the key concepts of quality and how you can actually sort of bring that to life.
Yeah, good shout to hear. I never looked at Stephen's question again. The last bit I didn't pick up on. So I think this is Steve Davis, by the way. I would start getting visible.
It's not Leigh, it's me.
Oh, sorry, Steve Davenport. Okay. I would learn to get more visible and how to celebrate. And I'm afraid you have to play a political game, which is get visible. Start celebrating. Think about how you can celebrate your wins, but get them outside of your team of testers. And I'm afraid it is a political game, but you need to start thinking about company channels. Do you use Yammer? Do you use Slack? Just start shouting about what you're doing to start people ask the question, well, that sounds pretty cool. What's going on over there? Let's go and speak to Steve.
Yeah, thanks for that, all three of you. Yeah, very good answers, actually. And I think, Leigh, you've just wrapped up what my future thoughts will be about where I'm moving to. So yeah, no, that's pretty cool. I'll catch up with you offline, don't worry. Thanks.
Right, we've had an interesting one actually from Ahmed, who's asked quality advocacy, i.e. enabling others and baking quality in. It looks to me like a role for an experienced tester or guru. Do you think that a newcomer can fit into that role? And how to enable those skills to become a QA coach for the team? So I think this is really quite interesting, because I know me and Leigh, we also spoke about this before the event, saying about how ultimately with the quality coaches that there will be less testers within organizations. I suppose they will streamline test teams. So how is someone, you know, supposed to enter the industry almost? How do you become a quality coach if you're new to testing? Tough question.
Who's going first?
I think he's used a lot of your language there, Tahira. So quality advocacy, baking ties into the cake. So go first.
Cake and eat it too. So yeah, I suppose I would say that whether you have half a year's experience, 10 years experience, or no experience whatsoever, I would say that, you know, actual testing skills only take you so far. As I think both Stu and Leigh have alluded to, the mindset's the important thing. So if you are intellectually curious, if you are someone that is willing to work together with other people, if you are someone who is willing to ask questions and challenge the status quo, someone who is passionate and enthusiastic and ultimately wants to make things better, those I think are some of the key ingredients that build your mindset. And if you're starting off new in the industry and you're not really sure how to get yourself established with either those the specific testing skills or the quality mindset, my best advice would be to reach out and try and find a mentor, someone who's established, who's lived that kind of life before, someone who's got the war stories to tell and can give you the benefit of their experience, and spend some time with them, identifying your journey, and seeing how that mentor can help guide you through that. And, you know, probably a combination of both coaching and mentoring, because they are different, will help you in that sort of journey along the way. Testing skills are things that you can pick up on the job, through courses, or all different ways, but the mindset's absolutely key there. So coming in with that combination of things, or being willing to sort of be open to that kind of mindset, I think that's the key thing.
I think that's a very good answer to quite a hard question. I don't know if you're going to add anything to that, Leigh.
Yeah, I was going to say I cannot add anything to that. That is the answer.
Yeah. So just scrolling down a little bit, I know Fifi has asked, accountability is still with the test QA team for quality. Trying to state that the whole development or engineering team are accountable could cause too many opinions. So again, I assume this is alluding to overcoming resistance from engineering teams for this change in approach, but I don't know if you'd like to clarify, Fifi.
No, it's more a case of trying to, so at the moment, if you've got a team of, I don't know, say 4 developers and 3 QAs or whatever it is, that's 7 people, trying to say that everybody's accountable for quality will give you differing opinions, just because it will do, because, and that's good, you need differing opinions on what we think is quality. But ultimately, is it still with the QA? It's not tester necessarily, because anybody could do the testing, as you've said, but is it with the QA to be accountable for that quality? rather than necessarily developer. You don't think so, Leigh?
Sorry, no, it's only my opinion, and the whole world is made up of different opinions. My opinion is the test coach, tester, QA, all these different roles, BA, developer, no single person is accountable for quality. And that's only my opinion, and I could be wrong. What I've seen, even at the very group, was the team taking responsibility for quality. And we have several people here who've worked at the very group or are still there or into even their last working day, Andrew? So for me, it's the whole team approach. Now, if you've got this context or this team or culture where they still think it's the QA, I think that's a tricky place to be in the current climate, because devs are doing more and more and more. So why, in a world where devs are doing more and more and more checking and automating, why would you then hand that accountability off to one?
So I agree with that. So I still think there's a divide. There's a specific role for testers and for developers, because you're not saying that the testers are going to write the code, for example, because that's why you've got a developer, unless you've got a senior developer in test, I guess, or a developer in test. So while you've still got those two specific functions, you've got the developers who will look at writing the unit tests, and I would expect the tester or the QA person to sit with the developer and go through the unit tests to make sure that they understand what's being unit tests, and you can do risk-based approach testing and all sorts of stuff that will help you going forward. So the developer bakes in quality within the unit tests. Where does the tester sit there then for that, or quality? So what happens then after that, I guess, is what I'm saying.
So I suppose I would say, sorry, Leigh, do you want to go? Okay, so I'd say actually I'm with Leigh on this, that the accountability is something that has to be shared, because all of these activities contribute to quality as a whole. And if we take the example that you just played through, I've been the QA in the team and written production level code. I've been the QA in the team and I've written stories and actually played the BA role and worn the BA hat. I've been the QA in the team and I've actually, helped to manage iterations and get through the work and take care of, managing the capture of metrics for cycle time and burn down and all those kinds of things. Our roles and our skills are growing and becoming more both broad in terms of like the types of things we can do, but also building that depth in each of those specialisms over time. And I think the same goes for other roles within the team as well. So for devs, for BAs, for everyone, the more that we're working together, the more that these responsibilities and these different skills bleed in. And so you get to the point where actually, from cradle to grave, we've all had a hand in this. We've all contributed and baked that quality in through all of our different activities that we've actually taken place with. So to sort of say that, well, okay, it's just with the QA then, or the tester to have overall accountability for something that is a team sport, doesn't sit right with me personally.
So we're saying that we think that one person can do every single role, and in effect.
Not every single role, but what I'm saying is that as time goes on, the number of activities that people can do within their own roles grows, and therefore you get to the point where you have more multi-skilled. And I've been in some organizations where you do away with the separate different titles altogether, and people are just engineers but with different specialisms. So that's one eventual possibility for that kind of route. The other is to obviously still keep that the specific titles, as in that's your sort of subject matter expertise, but the actual activities that you can and do contribute to go all across the board, so to speak, and that helps to give everyone a sense of not just shared accountability, but shared understanding and shared responsibility for the things that happen there. With the obvious caveats of you don't mark your own homework, so you don't test your own code. Those sort of like basic rules like that. But apart from that, I would say that no, we are going more towards the place where these things are something that we can all take on in terms of different activities within our roles, as long as we actually want to do them as well, right? So there might be QAs out there who don't actually want to get to the point of being able to write production level code, but it would definitely be advantageous for them to be able to understand and be able to read the code, so they don't actually have to rely just on the devs to write the unit tests, as one example.
Awesome.
So you're on mute, hun.
do we not trust the developers to do their roles then? Is that what we're saying?
Can I answer?
that was
Can
just put
I
that out
answer
there.
this question? I was thinking, I have been working in like teams where I was as a QA and the developer. When I look at their code, their unit tests, and I'd say they have covered one aspect of the test, for example, they haven't covered other. So I go and say, okay, these are the unit tests written for this piece of code. I have some understanding about the classes, the functions they have created. I can't write the production level code, but actually by helping write better tests, I improve the quality. That's what the baking quality in on the granular, very, very low level. When I look at the stories, when I see, oh, acceptance criteria is written, but when I work with the BA, for example, then I say, okay, how can that be better? So it's understood within a team. And so that's basically baking the quality at the very, very low level. When I work with the DevOps engineer, I'm looking at how the infrastructure code has been written. And then I say, okay, yeah, he has considered this one in the cluster now. What happened if this happens? So this is not there. So that's kind of like baking quality at low level. But again, it's very, very kind of different role. This is inclusive role. You are included in various different parts. You are kind of not specialist in coding, but you are a specialist in questioning, where you question, oh, what this is, why this, that, why, what if that doesn't happen?
I agree. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm trying to understand the idea of morphing into one role almost is how I heard Tahira say it. So that's what I was trying to sort of understand. And I still think that people have different roles where they're specialists at, and we need to work together, exactly as Tahira said, and ask questions, etc. But not necessarily be the one that writes a code as if your specialist area is QA or testing, I guess.
I think perhaps I'll just clarify that. I'm not saying that I would see that, we do away with all roles. I think there's definitely value in having different people with different specialisms that all contribute to the whole, and all of the activities that I was talking about there were just examples of how you can broaden your role to encompass different skills. All of those things that I described, by the way, I did not do them in isolation. I did them pairing with a dev or pairing with a BA or pairing with an iteration manager or whatever, to one, increase my understanding and my skills in that, but two, so that also they can learn from me, I can learn from them.
Yeah, okay. I think that was a very interesting rabbit hole we just went down. We are into the last 10 minutes now, and I did want to summarize by, I suppose, going through the key skills that a quality coach needs. If we are saying that this is ultimately where the industry is going, and I just think it is a nice way to summarize. So I don't know if any of you want to jump in and say what you think the key skills are to be a successful quality coach.
Do you want to go first, Stuart?
Yep. So I think from my perspective, I think there's a really good kind of question on there about, can somebody new become a quality coach? And absolutely they can. It's very much around, that mindset shift and having that right type of mindset to focus on, on the quality side of things. You really need to be able to have open your mind and have look at things holistically. And this comes back to the point Leigh was making earlier in terms of teams understanding quality from what they do, but having that bigger picture and that bigger awareness and understanding all the parts to that end-to-end type puzzle, if you like, of where quality can come in. So being able to obviously ask questions, build awareness, and understand every organization is going to be different. Every team is going to be different. The people in those teams are going to be different, right? So it isn't a one size fits all, approach. And as a coach, any type of coach, whether it be quality, whether it be agile, whether it be, business, you need to understand the landscape that you're working within and the direction that the organization is wanting and willing to go. And willing is very important, because you can try and guide them to a point that they're just never going to get to because they're not willing. So for me, it's asking those questions, having that open mindset, having those personal skills, and actually understanding the difference between coaching, mentoring, and training as well is really, really key. I mean, that's quite broad, but you know, I'll let the guys sort of add on to that.
So, not a dissimilar list. So I wrote down question asker. So QA stands for question asker. Empathy. I wrote a strange word down, bounce back ability. So what I mean by that is, as a quality coach, you're going to hit brick walls, and you're going to walk away and go home on certain days thinking you haven't changed mindsets. But the next day you need to come in and bounce back. I think curiosity, passionate. I wrote something else down which is odd. Think big, but start small and start now. So you might have this think big, I want quality to be in everyone's mindset and everybody owning it. But guess what? That could be really, really fluffy and massive. But start small, start now could be pairing with a dev on unit checks, putting in a mobbing session where the whole team come together. So I think everything Stuart said, and then what I've just said on top, and I'm sure Tahira will have many other things to add.
Yeah, I think to echo both Stu and Leigh, there's definitely a good core thing there we're building up there, which is a combination of mindset, understanding, questioning, curiosity, passion. If I take it just back to that sort of cake analogy that I started with at the beginning, the combination of the equipment, the recipe, the professional, and the ingredients. So to me, if I were to kind of like bring that up back again to a level and sort of think about things that I would see in a good QA, I think you need to be part psychologist / people understander. You need to be able to understand not just people, but their motivations, what makes them tick, how you can actually work with them, what will actually get them passionate and curious and involved with what you're trying to do. You need to have enough of an understanding of the technological and equipment sort of landscape to be able to contribute when it comes to the more technical type discussions, but that's something that you can build over time. You need to have a bit of a recipe card, so you know the understanding of processes and how things can fit together, and how changing this one thing here can have a knock-on impact there. And you also need to be able to take all those things, build in your own level of resilience, be willing to learn and understand and accept that you're not going to have all the answers, and that's actually okay, because you're surrounded by plenty of other talented people who you can learn from and who can learn from you. And that's probably where I'd bring it all back up together.
Yeah. I have worked a few of those roles before, actually, in terms of sourcing for clients, and I did write down some of the key skills from the specs that I've received as well. So I was sort of cheating, but I did have some of the answers anyway from other people's opinions. So that includes stuff like domain knowledge, good listening and empathy, which I suppose is the emotional intelligence that I think a lot of you were referring to, observation, process improvement, leadership and influencing skills, which again you mentioned, resilience or bounce back ability, as you eloquently put. So yeah, again, I think you've all pretty much covered those. So yeah, we are pretty much at 1 o'clock now. I've really enjoyed that. I think that was a great session. Thank you, obviously, to all the speakers for getting involved and contributing to the discussion. I think it's flowed really well, and I will look to do more of these in future as well. So if anyone is keen to do some more events like this, if anyone has any subjects that they would like to see covered or help cover themselves, then again, please do reach out to me. And yeah, I will be posting on LinkedIn just to I suppose summarize the key points that we've covered as well. So please do add to the discussion. Let me know what you enjoyed. Let me know maybe what you didn't enjoy, or what you'd like to see next time, because I'm always open to constructive criticism. But yeah, once again, huge thanks to all the speakers. I have really enjoyed that. So yeah, thank you for that. And we are pretty much bang on 1 o'clock, so timed very well. And yeah, over and out.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Stay safe.
Bye.